It's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is classify. Let's take a look at some of the ways we can use this verb. The first two ways that you might hear classify used are pretty close in meaning. The first is to arrange a group of people or a group of things into classes or categories. And you're arranging these groups because there are some shared qualities or characteristics. The second definition is to assign someone or something to a particular class or category. So again, these two definitions are very closely related, and it's that idea of putting things or people into groups. A third way you might hear the verb classify used is to mean to designate information as being officially secret. And this particular definition might seem odd or kind of strange compared to the other two, but we could sort of think of this third definition as relating to the others in that we are taking information and we are putting it in a special group, and that group is secret. Sometimes information is classified or is made secret, and then only certain people are permitted to see it or to access it. This happens in our government all the time. You should know that classify is a regular verb. To make the progressive form, all we need to do is add ing to form classifying. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are going to require a spelling change because this verb ends in y. We're going to get rid of the y, add an I, and then add ed to form classified. The base verb, classify, ends with a vowel sound. So our past tense ending is making a D sound. Make sure you can hear it. Classified, classified. You'll be happy to know I don't have any additional meanings or usages for this particular verb with phrasal verbs. That's going to allow us to focus on making some sentences in the simple past tense and the simple future using will. Let's start with the simple past tense. Remember, we're using this verb tense to note an action that was completed at some known time in the past. Now, there may be a time signal in a particular sentence like yesterday, last week, in 1975, etc. That would all indicate in the past. But sometimes it's just sort of understood either as part of a conversation or as part of a story. We're talking about a specific day or time, and we know that is in the past. To make an affirmative simple past tense sentence, all you need to use is our past tense form of the verb. So this will be true no matter what our subject is. Here's an example. The WHO classified the COVID variant in India as being of concern. I borrowed this sentence from a news report I saw last week. Again, sort of noting they are grouping this into a particular category of we should be concerned about how this particular variety of or this particular strain is mutating and affecting human beings. Now let's look at making a negative simple past tense sentence. To do this, we're going to use did not and then the base verb. So we're not using an ed form in the negative. Here's an example. She didn't classify her writing as poetry. Right? We know there are many different styles of writing, and here she is not grouping her particular production, her written work, as poetry, one of those forms. Finally, if you want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, we want to start with did, then we'll have our subject, and then the base verb. So again, we're not using the ed ending here in our yes or no question. Here's an example. Did the police classify it as a hate crime? So in this particular sentence, and if you study law, justice, maybe other kind of social science topics, you might be aware that if someone commits a particular crime and they have selected their victim or the target due to that person's race, their ethnicity, their religion, etc., then there is sort of an ability to group this crime as being a little bit different, and there can be more severe punishment for that. And that's what this sentence is describing. So did the police put this in a group of hate crimes? So again, sort of targeting a person or a group of people based on race, ethnicity, religion, etc. Now, let's take a look at the simple future. Today, we're going to focus on using will. We do this form of the future when we're making offers, promises, if we make a quick decision as well. We also use it to make predictions. And the nice thing about using will to express simple future is that our structure is going to be the same no matter what the subject is. So in the affirmative, we'll use will and then the base verb. You'll see that in the example here. France will classify other countries into 3 categories for travel. So as the world sort of opens back up after the pandemic now, we have different countries making different rules about how people can and maybe whether they should be traveling internationally. So if they're traveling to a place where there are still many uncontrolled outbreaks, or I should say if they want to travel, their home country might be telling them, no, I'm sorry, it's not safe, because there's a risk of when you return, you might possess it and pass it to more of our citizens, and we don't want an outbreak here. Now let's look at making a negative simple future sentence. Here we'll use will, not, and then the base verb. You might hear some people use the contraction form won't, and then you'll see that in my example. He won't classify himself as a bully. Again, all of these examples here relate back to those first 2 definitions we looked at, as like placing someone into a particular group. So he is not placing himself into the group labeled bullies. Lastly, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do this, we're going to start with will, then we'll have our subject, and then the base verb. Will students classify vertebrates into groups in this exercise? So the action of classifying occurs in many academic subjects, very commonly in biology. Students will study different groups that have those similar or shared characteristics that create various biological groups. Now, let's spend some time looking at words that are related to our verb classify. And the first word we're going to look at is the noun classification. This can also have a couple different meanings. One is the action or process of classifying something due to shared qualities or characteristics. So again, things that are in common or things that are just about the same. Here's an example of that. This course will look at biological classifications. This ties back to that yes or no question we just looked at moments ago. So again, in this particular academic course, groups of students are going to look at the process of how certain animals or creatures are classified, are put into groups due to their shared qualities. Sometimes when the noun classification is used, all it really means is a category. You can see that in the second example sentence. Is their classification employee or independent contractor? This is an important question in terms of employment law because there are different duties and responsibilities from an employer's perspective or from like the company's perspective on how they treat and interact with employee versus independent contractor. Also lots of different tax rules related to that. So the category really does matter. The next word we'll look at is the noun classifieds. You may have seen this if you regularly read a newspaper, but this is a section of a newspaper that has many small advertisements. So the print tends to be rather tiny, very small. And these advertisements are organized by category. So you might see a category with jobs. You might see a category with houses for sale versus houses for rent, apartments for rent. You might see automobiles that are for sale, etc. So there tend to be many different groups, and could be an individual advertising this. It could be a company as well placing an advertisement. So here's an example sentence. I saw this garage sale advertised in the classifieds. And again, that's also a very common heading or group for that section. You should also note that classified can be an adjective. It can have a couple different meanings. One is referring to something that has been arranged in classes or categories. An example of this, classified staff will receive a raise. So again, kind of looking at a specific group or groups of employees here. The adjective classified could also refer back to the third definition of the verb we looked at minutes ago, meaning designated as being officially secret. So you might have heard something like this in a movie or a TV show. I'm sorry, but that's classified information, meaning I'm not able to share, I'm not able to show you this or speak about it. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great